Bro, can you please stop being so dramatic? I'm not. Do you hear? Do you even hear the news? Xavier Howard, our best player, is being traded. He's being traded. We can't keep one good player.
They just announced that the Dolphins are keeping him, actually.
Oh. Yeah, actually, I am being too dramatic. I'm sorry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ultimate preview of the 2021 Miami Dolphins. So there is a lot to talk about this year, obviously. This is probably the most optimistic year that we've been through on this channel, at least. 2019 we all knew was a rebuilding year. 2020 we kind of still thought was a bit of a rebuilding year, but had some potential. This year we know is not a rebuilding year. They're coming off of a 10-6 season, nearly made the playoffs, probably should have. And now this is a playoff, or I don't want to say bust season, but the expectations here are to make the playoffs. And they did still make a ton of splashes in the offseason. I think this actually was their best offseason that Brian Flores and Chris Greer have ever had. I don't think they really overpaid or underpaid any of these players or whatever. I think they just figured out a lot of things. I thought they did particularly well in the draft. And honestly, I think they're just ready to rock and roll. So let's go ahead and start here by talking about the head coach, which of course is Brian Flores. Now, honestly, Brian Flores is kind of by a landslide my favorite Dolphins head coach that I've ever seen, at least. I know we haven't actually made playoffs under him yet. And I do say yet because I do think that's going to happen at some point. But I think the players clearly like him. They buy into him. They buy into his scheme. He's clearly a likable, maybe relatable guy for some of the players on here. He just seems like he's very respected and that he actually knows what he's doing. Like, what we always do in the off seasons ever since he's came in was like, wait, this is what like a lot of normal good NFL teams do. Like with Adam Gase, don't get me wrong, Albert Wilson is doing good, but I'm definitely not denying that it didn't make sense that it was like, well, we're going to trade away Jarvis Landry because he's too much, he's too expensive. But then they overpay for like 2 slot receivers, including Albert Wilson. It's kind of like, well, then why didn't you just keep Jarvis Landry, who was better than both of those people? Because you ended up paying the same amount of money. And it's just every time we had a good player, we got rid of him simply just because they didn't like him. Like Gase didn't like Ajayi. He's gone, no particular reason. He's just gone. He doesn't like Jarvis Landry. He's just gone, and I know it kind of sounds like I'm only ripping on Adam Gase, but basically point is we're building like an actual good NFL team. And I think a good part of that is because Brian Flores actually knows what he's doing. The defense is actually playing like a top unit in the NFL as a defensive-minded coach. How many times are we going to see these people that say they're defensive gurus, but then their defense isn't even good? We still had that with Adam Gase only on the offense. They were like, oh my gosh, he's an offensive guru. He's so good. And his offense was like dead last every single year. So like finally, we have someone who specializes on a certain side of the field, and it's like actually good. So really not a lot more I can say about Brian Flores, but he does need to start making the playoffs or else they actually will enter the hot seat conversation. Although I still don't think he'd be on the hot seat this year because I think it would have to do more with other players on the team that we'll get to in a second. But really nothing to complain about with our head coach. Good culture guy. I think he's smart. He knows what he's doing. Not a lot to complain with our head coach. Offensive coordinator is definitely an interesting situation. They're going with 2 offensive coordinators, Eric Stutzfeld and George Godsey. Now, I made a video on this back when they were hired, so if you want more information on them, I guess you can go check that video out. I'm not going to lie, they don't have the best record or resume, but I do think that the reason they got them is because they fit with Tua's particular play style. One thing I will give Chan Gailey is that, his best season was with Ryan Fitzpatrick all the way back in the day. So the reason Ryan Fitzpatrick was able to look so good last year is because he was with the system that fit him so well. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that. I'm not out here saying Chan Gailey was some great offensive coordinator, but that's part of the reason Tua didn't actually do good. I know it's easy to blame the offensive coordinator, but in that situation, it is definitely a factor. So now they got two offensive coordinators that specifically fit Tua's play style. Will it work? We'll see. The two duo offensive coordinator thing is definitely worrisome. We'll see if that works out. And defensive coordinator, they have it down as Josh Boyer, but to be honest, Brian Flores feels more like the defensive coordinator most of the time. But defense usually plays like a top 5 defense, or at least lately, as of last year. So whatever's going on for defensive coordinator, I guess there's still not a whole lot of complaints if they're playing like a top 5 unit. So that's our coaching staff right there. Kind of question marks at offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, but I give them the benefit of the doubt just because of the head coach, which is the most important one. But let's move on to the actual players here. The quarterback situation is going to be Tua Tagovailoa and Jacoby Brissett. Now, Tua definitely is getting a lot of criticism, and even as someone who was lower on Tua, even before the Dolphins drafted him, even I think he's getting way too much crap. I really think that, I was like, was he that bad? Like, Tua didn't have a very impressive rookie season, but I don't think he was that god-awful. Like, he just has no potential. I think everyone's ripping on the kid way too much, and I think the Dolphins are also setting him up for success, like what I was just saying about the offensive coordinators fitting with his play style. They got a lot of wide receivers, and I think this defense is also going to help him out. So the Dolphins are doing a good job at helping Tua, and in general, there's no way he'll be worse than he was as a rookie. Like, there's room for improvement, and he's actually looked pretty good as of training camp. I know I said I don't listen to that stuff, but he has definitely looked good. So I kind of have Tua as a breakout candidate. I actually made a video on that earlier this year. If you want to go check that out, I think there's a lot of reasons Tua is poised for a breakout year. I think this year Tua will take that leap and start to look like the quarterback that we were hoping he'd be. I still don't think he's going to reach the level that most fans were hoping he'd be at, but that's not me saying I think he's going to be a bad quarterback. I obviously hope he reaches the elite level, but we'll just kind of see how that goes. There's only one problem with the offense that I will get into that I have worries about on what would hold Tua back. But as far as Jacoby Brissett goes, I kind of think he's underrated. A lot of people I hear talking about him always say, like, oh, he's not that good, but, he's a good backup. Like, I think he's a little better than that. I don't think he's a starting quarterback, admittedly, but I think he's a little better than that. Like, if Tua doesn't play well, I think this team could still make a playoff run with Jacoby Brissett and the weapons that are here. So I guess if that says anything. Running back, they definitely didn't put a lot of emphasis on. They drafted Jared Dokes. We'll see how good he is, but it's mainly going to be about the starter here, Myles Gaskin, that they drafted 2 years ago. He's been a solid running back, not like something entirely special, but he definitely hasn't been bad. He's just a solid running back, but the Dolphins clearly didn't actually care that much about this position. And to be honest, as they shouldn't, because, again, there's one more problem that we'll get into that would kind of hold them back regardless of who was at their running back. But also, it's just a very replaceable, not actually that important position nowadays. But Myles Gaskin, that's not to say he's a bad running back. He's a good running back. He's solid. This is what I think about him. The wide receivers, they are really good here at wide receiver. And I don't even have the depth listed here, but they have really good depth as well with Preston Williams, and I'm kind of giving up on Jakeem Grant as a receiver, but he's a really good special teams player, and they even still have Albert Wilson and Allen Hurns in there, or at least as of this video. I know they're obviously going to cut some players, but they have some good depth, but the starters here are really good. Devontae Parker is probably still your number 1 receiver. He's not a bad receiver to have. Most people are probably going to say he's a number 2 receiver, which is fine. Like, he is playing like, somewhere around that range. I think he's obviously got good, jump ball skills. He's kind of that guy where, like, if Tua needs someone to throw to on third down, he's probably the guy. He's the jump ball receiver there, but he's really good. He's got the traits of a wide receiver, number 1. They brought in Will Fuller. He is a really underrated receiver. He's going to bring in that speed. So if they get the deep balls going, he'll definitely be involved. So very good pickup there for Miami, as Devontae Parker's not quite that speed deep threat, so they got him and Will Fuller. And then they drafted Jalen Waddle, who I guess they're kind of hoping is like their version of Tyreek Hill, which obviously isn't bad. And Tua did play with Jalen Waddle in college, So hopefully that chemistry does live up. But regardless, you have really good wide receivers here. And I definitely have high expectations for this group. They have one of the best receiving units in the league. And that's part of the reason I think Tua is going to break out, is because of this help here that they brought in at receiver. Not to mention their tight ends. They're bringing in Mike Gesicki. Hopefully they give him a contract. They haven't as of this recording, but he's actually been a very valuable asset. I warned people so many times not to give up on Mike Gesicki. It seemed like he was hyped up his rookie season, and then afterwards, since he didn't do like amazing his rookie season, people just kind of gave up on him. And I told everyone that that was a mistake. Like, I told people to not give up on him, and ever since then, he's actually played like one of the better tight ends in the league. So hopefully they give him an extension, because Tua does like to throw to tight ends a lot as well. He's got good hands. He's very athletic. He's not a good blocker, but they didn't really bring him in to be that. It's just kind of to be, I guess, a George Kittle. Like, he's definitely at the same athletic level as him. He's just an overall really good tight end. And they also brought in Hunter Long here. So if Gesicki's more like a receiver, then maybe they're hoping Hunter Long can be like an actual tight end if they're wanting to block or so. But, you know, it's really just about Mike Gesicki. I want them to pay him so bad. He is seriously so important to this team. I can't imagine they'll let him go, but we'll see. Now, the biggest worry on this offense, because honestly, the offense does have a lot of good players and potential, but I did kind of warn you guys about this O-line, though. Like, ew, this is a really bad starting lineup. Like, Austin Jackson at left tackle, Solomon Kinley left guard, center Matt Skura from Baltimore, right guard Robert Hunt, and right tackle probably going to be Liam Eichenberg. Like, there's some players that I know just haven't developed yet, but like, I'm hearing rumors that they're going to go and try to trade for a tackle. Like, I did kind of warn you guys that we should start going for offensive line. And it could hold Tua back, because Tua's not the tallest guy. So if that offensive line breaks down, there's a chance these receivers go for nothing, because Tua will just get sacked. And it's not like they're going to get the running game going with an offensive line like that. So if this offensive line does kind of cost the Dolphins of a potentially good offense, all I'm going to say is I did kind of warn you guys that we should start fixing the O-line. Like, it's just not looking very good. I just hope that next year that becomes their main priority on offense, if Tua does look good at least. But, yeah, I don't know. I kind of warned you guys about the O-line. Let's just move on. In general, the offense should be, like, a good unit. Honestly, I think it does hinge on the O-line and, of course, Tua. But if, you know, I guess the good thing is that they do have two speedster receivers, so that if the O-line really does play that bad, Tua probably can just get rid of the ball pretty quickly, and Jalen Waddle or Will Fuller can do something after the catch. So we'll just see. I don't think it's going to be like this terrible offense, but the O-line is definitely a problem. Now, as for the defense, that is the true strength of this Dolphins team, so we'll get into it here. The defensive line is decent. Roquan Davis and Christian Wilkins as your, interior defensive linemen. It's like solid. They're like decent run defenders. Not like anything too crazy, but they're fine. But the edge rushers here, I think I'm a lot more optimistic about. Emmanuel Ogbah had a breakout season last year. I definitely didn't see that coming. He was probably the biggest surprise of any Dolphins player I've ever watched. I just seriously, when they signed him, I did not expect anything of it. I was like, whatever, it's Emmanuel Ogbah, whatever. But he actually surprisingly fit the scheme very, very well. And they actually might even give him a contract extension soon. So hopefully he can repeat that success. But I'm really stoked about Jalen Phillips that they just drafted. I think he also fits the scheme very well. And honestly, there's a chance he could earn Defensive Rookie of the Year. Like, going with Brian Flores, like, especially since they usually don't put a lot of emphasis on the D-line in these, Patriot way Belichick defenses, he's got a chance to stand out here and be a really good football player for the Dolphins. So the D-line, honestly, is pretty underrated. I think that's kind of a sleeper aspect because everyone knows how good the secondary is for the Dolphins. But if this, pass rush and the run defense really steps up, that defense could be like a top 3 unit. I think it's already a top 5, to be honest, but yeah, like, look out for that. I think there is definitely potential. The linebackers, they brought in Benodrick McKinney from Houston. I think he'll be a pretty decent addition, and they just gave Jerome Baker a contract extension, and they're also banking on Andrew Van Ginkel, who played pretty decent last year. They got rid of Kyle Van Noy already, but I think it's because of him. So linebackers, it's just kind of like a solid group. No one really that you're complaining about. Like, everyone here has like at least Pro Bowl potential. So, linebackers, it's not a bad group at all. Like, it's just kind of a solid linebacker group. It's all I can really say. But obviously the biggest strength on the Dolphins as a whole is their secondary, especially their cornerback duo. And now that Xavier Howard is paid, we can confidently say that Xavier Howard will be a Dolphin, and that, we don't have to go like, well, if he's gone, like, we actually have confidence that we can talk about Xavier Howard today. So, excuse my reminder there, but yeah, anyway, so the cornerback duo is definitely very, very good. Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, probably the best cornerback duo in the league. There are some pretty good ones, but it's definitely up there. Byron Jones took a little while to get going, but he did look like his old self at the end of the year. So nothing to complain about there with Byron Jones. And Xavier Howard, obviously, just turnover machine. Some people think that last year was like a fluky interception year. Not really. Remember in 2018, the last time he was fully healthy before that, he had like 8 interceptions or 7. Like, I think it was 7. And he got injured at the end of the year. Like, he very well could have had 10. Like, I don't think the interceptions are fluky for Xavier Howard. I think he really is just a really good, like, ball hawk corner. So I see why the Dolphins just could not let him go. Like, the contract thing was scary. It was looking like we weren't going to be able to keep him, but the Dolphins obviously saw that he was a pretty big asset to the team, and I see why they didn't let him go, because it was like, no, like, you're too valuable, and you also signed that contract. Like, it's just, I'm sorry, but you're not going, so, there's just that whole situation. But the safety should be pretty good too. I've always liked Eric Rowe. Maybe I overrate him a little bit, but I do think he's a good, solid safety for us. And I always talk about how excited I am about Javon Holland, the player that they just drafted. This is such a Brian Flores player, and I think he is actually going to be a good player as a rookie. So, gosh, this secondary, I think it'll end up being the best secondary in the league, just to be honest. I don't even think that's such a bold take, to be honest. Like, I think they just will. So the defense is definitely the Dolphins' biggest strength here. There are some questions on the offense, but I don't really see any questions on the defense. There's really no reason the defense shouldn't perform just as good as they did last year. So let's just kind of go over, like, I guess the overall for the Dolphins this year. I think their ceiling is about 12 wins. Like, I just think there are a few questions on the offense, so we'll see. But I think 12 wins is still very good. The floor is 7 wins. That's just kind of has to do with the benefit of the doubt that Brian Flores offers. They're never going to be this, like, bottom dwelling team. Like, even in 2019, like, they really weren't like that bad at the end of the year. They just couldn't help how bad that roster was. But so yeah, they have a decent floor too. My prediction is that they have 11 wins, and my record prediction 3.0 is still coming up, but that's overall what I'm going to predict, at least for this video, is that they get around 11 wins, and I think that is going to be good to make the playoffs. I do have them as a playoff team, and that's not even me being a biased fan. I just truly think they're going to be a playoff team. There's not really any reason they shouldn't make the playoffs this year. I think it's also, well, AFC is not easy, but I think it's going to be easier than it was last year. Super Bowl, not quite yet. I think they need to at least get some experience in the playoffs. And again, there's just a little too many question marks at offense, but obviously I'm not going to rule out the Super Bowl. That's why I say not yet. Maybe I'm not going to predict they win it this year, but I do think they can get there in the future. And overall, this Dolphins team, I think, is just kind of on the upward trend. And I am super stoked because this 2021 Dolphins team, I really do think, has potential to be a pretty fun team to watch. But that's my preview on the 2021 Dolphins. I maybe made this video a little early, but let me know what you guys think. How good do you guys think? Did I mess up anywhere? Are there any players that you think I should have talked about? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, Dolphin fans, I will catch you for the next one. Fins up.